let's get right into it and tell us a bit about, people know this is in sort of Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings, sort of fiction. Where's this game set? What is the story of this game?
So it takes place, it's after the end of The Hobbit. So in The Hobbit, Sauron gets defeated by the White Council, driven out of Dol Guldur. So a bit of a movie spoiler, but that happens in the book. And then 60 years later, Lord of the Rings starts. So it's in that those decades in between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings when Sauron has returned to Mordor.
Now, looking at the gameplay here, obviously a lot of people have been talking about how this feels, very playable. It's almost, Batman meets Lord of the Rings. I mean, very, very visceral, great combat, as we can see here. Lots of violence. It's what we like on Spike. Look at that headshot. So tell us, from a gameplay perspective, is this an action game? Is this an RPG? How do you describe it?
I'd definitely say it's an action game.
Okay.
So it's a third-person, open-world action game. But we want people to have a huge amount of freedom in terms of how to approach the action. So whether that's the melee combat or the stealth or the ranged or, of course, dominating your enemies with your Wraith powers. So huge amount of kind of tools in the toolbox.
Right.
And then because we have all that freedom, there's a lot of RPG mechanics of how you can level that up, grow in power, basically bend Mordor to your will.
Now tell us, this footage that we're seeing here, first look at what you're showing at E3. Tell us about it. Where are we in the game?
So this is the Sea of Nirn. So this is like a totally new area of Mordor. We're revealing kind of many hundreds of miles kind of behind enemy lines. Very different location within Mordor from the kind of blasted volcanic hellscapes we've seen before. This is where Sauron's going to feed his armies from.
Right.
And so this is when you've been drawn into this area by this character, Queen Marwen, and she holds the key to some of the secrets and the mystery and the power of who this Wraith is. So revealing that you can actually do more than just hunt down and kill your enemies. You can bend them to your will. You can build your own army behind enemy lines.
All right, so some depth behind the action. I got to play it a few weeks ago, and it is definitely a very playable, fun game. It's coming out later this year, right?
Yeah, October 7th, so we're very excited for obviously more people to get their hands on it and play it, so E3 is huge for us.
All right, well, we're definitely going to go hands-on and check it out. And tell us a little bit about character customization. I noticed there's a lot going on there, so there is some depth to that as well, right?
Yeah, so, what we wanted to, really bring something new into action games is into the enemies. Like, we didn't want generic cannon fodder. We wanted to let every player actually create their own personal villains, almost super villains, so they're the guys that you fight, the guys that survive, the guys that see you in battle as your legend's growing, your enemies are growing as well. So by the end of the game, the ultimate bosses you're going to be fighting is someone you've actually created through the previous, many hours of gameplay.
Now, we talked about this game before and the idea of sort of blending action and RPGs. Tell us about the feeling of combat and what that's going to be like, because I know when I played it, it does have that same sort of visceral feel as Batman, where it's very playable, and that's obviously not an easy thing to do. So tell us about sort of the choreography of the action.
Yeah, choreography, I think, is a great word to use, and that really was our starting point. We did look a lot at Arkham as the reference point for the absolute best third-person, combat, the third-person melee combat. Yeah. But of course, when you change the context, you've got weapons. And so that was the foundation of our melee. But then I think what we wanted to do very much is to create a really dynamic living world, like really a living world, really an ecosystem. And what I think we're really proud of is the way the stealth, the range, the combat really blend seamlessly into each other. So, you can come out of stealth, enter into combat with a sort of a stealth kill that ups your hit counter, that flows beautifully into your first sort of chord move, and you're taking the first guy's head off. That builds up the ability to use your Wraith powers to get more ammo. So they really flow into each other, and I think create something that's pretty unique at the end of the day.
Absolutely, as you said, it's not just all melee. It's like you've got a bunch of different options. Now, tell us about the character, how your character will sort of be upgraded throughout the game. I know it's not a full-on RPG, but there is a sense of progression, right?
Yeah, definitely. So at the beginning of the game, you're playing as Talion. He's one of the rangers who's on the Black Gate when Sauron comes home, basically, and slaughters everybody. But Sauron's return has awakened this ancient spirit that actually has these very ancient grudge against Sauron. So another very powerful character in Middle-earth lore. Yeah. And then it's really the two of those characters together that are going into Mordor and kind of taking the fight to Sauron. Right. And so because of that, we've got the two axes of their progression. So on the ranger side, in the physical world, you can continue to develop your combat skills, your stealth skills, your navigation skills. And then within the Wraith world, those powers of domination, of bending enemies to your will, of gathering information from your enemies so you can plan your strategies, you know, that's got its whole tree as well.
Wow. Well, it's very cool that you got a lot of stuff happening in this game. Now, tell us about the types of enemies that we're going to encounter throughout the game. We'll see some of them here.
I mean, the great thing is, you know, so we're going to be showing this game like dozens and dozens of times over the next 3 days, and no 2 times we show it are we going to see the same enemies. Okay. Their personalities are different, their skills are different, their appearances are different, their classes are different. You know, there's sort of defenders who are going to be standing there maxed out in heavy armor, trainers who are going to go around with gangs of guys that they're leading, beast hunters who will be in the wilderness bringing down monsters. So, you know, every single one of those is going to play differently and have a different story as well.
All right, well, infinite replayability. Michael, thank you so much for hanging out with us and starting you through this. We really appreciate it. All right,
thank you very much.
We're going to be back live in just a few minutes on television. We will see you guys in just a second.